Hey there friends, and welcome to Laugh Napkin. My name is Frank, and today we're going to be looking at r/MaliciousCompliance. And I'm positive that you're going to love every single story. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. This is my absolute favorite story about my late grandfather. I was young at the time this happened, but have talked to a few people in adulthood to get a few details I didn't know before. My grandfather lived on Main Street in a small farming town of a few thousand. The town was laid out in the classic grid pattern off the main highway. On his property, he had 3 large pine trees, 40 to 50 feet high, in a line fairly close to the sidewalk, and over the years, the roots had started to lift up and crack some of the sidewalk. Understandably, the town wasn't pleased and wanted the trees removed so further damage wasn't incurred. Instead of coming to my grandfather to find a solution, they sent over an invoice for tree removal from property that amounted to more than his yearly property tax. Instead of paying, he chose malicious compliance. He took out his chainsaw and dropped all 3 trees right across Main Street, without warning, on a long weekend Friday. When the town responded with a few workers, my grandfather bluntly argued the trees weren't on his property, therefore couldn't be charged for their removal. They looked at the invoice the town sent, and rather than argue with the most stubborn man in town, they decided to just cut up and haul off the trees themselves. It took all afternoon and traffic was detoured around the block. They patched the sidewalk and the stumps are still there to this day. The town got the trees removed and my grandfather didn't pay a cent. Win-win. This is just epic. Sir, you have to pay for those trees to be removed. Like friggin' hell I do. Never mind, sir. We'll take care of it. Hit that like button for OP's awesome grandfather. On to the next story. I used to work for a shipping company, one of the big 2, in an office position. Our building had several different departments in it, but they were all non-customer facing. The office was in a nondescript office park. There was no sign except on the door itself. The building was locked and required a keypad entry. We only interacted with customers by phone and email. No Skype, no in-person. I worked there for 6 years and never saw a customer. The dress code was business casual, which, fine. I usually only wear skirts and dresses, so I look dressy anyway. In the summer, women could wear sandals, but nothing between the toes and nothing obviously beachy. Pretty reasonable. In summer 2012, I was just coming off a disability and was informed that a new policy was that we couldn't have more than 3 toes showing in our sandals. Why? No one knows. The 4th toe is clearly the slut toe. So I spent all weekend looking for sandals that I like that fit the recommendation. I hate peep toe shoes, and they look awful on me, so that was out. I finally found a nice pair of wedge sandals that fit the bill and were $80. I arrived at work on Monday, and within the hour, I'm told that my shoes do not conform. I said they only show 3 toes, and that's the rule I was given. Nope. Turns out that the heel couldn't be higher than 3 inches, platform higher than 1 inch, no flats, also unprofessional, no rubber soles, and if you were wearing shoes that covered your foot, mules, then the back of your foot could be out, but if your feet were out, the back of your foot had to be covered. Exceptions for doctor's notes, begrudgingly. So I was taken into a room and my shoes were measured. I have super high arches, so a heel is comfortable for me, and I chose wedges because they're more stable. The platform of my shoe was 1 inch and the heel was 3 inches, so I'm good, right? Well, the supervisor seems frustrated. So then she says, "No wedges. They're not professional." I was like, what the hell? So she pulls up the dress code online and shows me the example shoes. There are 4 good example shoes: a stiletto closed toe, a peep toe high heel, a block heel high heel closed toe, and kitten heel mules. She states that because there are no wedges, then I can't wear wedges. I point out that I can't wear a regular heel, and that there are no flat shoes shown. She tells me she'll discuss it with the group and have an answer for me tomorrow, and not to wear the shoes tomorrow. I'm like, screw this. I paid $80 for these shoes. I'm wearing them. So the next day I come in the shoes, and she tells me with a sour face that wedges are fine. However, she still doesn't think my shoe is appropriate. So tomorrow I have to wear other shoes, but bring these shoes so that all the supervisors could have a meeting about my shoe with my shoe present. I'm pissed. This is BS. This literally took up hours of my time over 2 days. Oh, but wait. I can escape the dress code shoes by having a doctor's note. I contact my orthopedist. I had knee surgery the year before, not related to most recent disability, and talk to the nurse. I explain the situation and describe my shoe, and ask if she, the doctor, thinks that this is an appropriate work shoe for after knee surgery. She said they definitely don't want me on heels and a wedge is fine. She also thought the whole situation was ludicrous, so she wrote a note. Doctor signed, exempting me from the dress code shoes and allowing me to wear whatever shoes I deemed comfortable. I had her fax me the note. We had e-fax. I forwarded the fax to both my supervisors, who were among the group of 7 supervisors who would meet tomorrow about my shoe. Within a few minutes, both were glaring at me, but I never heard a gosh dang thing about my shoes again. Also, I wore the shoes every day that summer, and then with tights through the winter because I'm petty as hell. Excuse my ignorance, as I've never worked a corporate job before, but what kind of company puts this much effort into what kind of shoes you wear? I mean, I get having a dress code, but this place seems extremely nitpicky. Tell me if you've dealt with this kind of thing in the comments below. On to the next story. I grew up on a horse ranch in Colorado. We had a long piece of property, about 80 acres, and we raised Missouri foxtrotters. We had lived there for almost 20 years when some folks bought up a strip of property way at the back of our land. It was a strange plot of land, as it was very narrow and was sandwiched between our back fence and a busy county road. We were surprised anyone would buy it actually, as it forced the house to be pretty close to said road. Well, we never met these new neighbors until one day my dad gets a notice from a lawyer telling us that after having surveyed the property lines, our back fence encroaches on their property between 3 and 6 inches depending on the spot along the fence line. These folks had never met us, never introduced themselves. Our first introduction was this legal demand. My father was a salt of the earth kind of man, very kind, but also very strong-willed. He called these folks, arranged a meetup, and tried to talk some sense into them. First, did 3 to 6 inches really matter that much? And why had they not come to us to talk it through? He even offered a number of different compromises. These folks were hostile from the get-go. They demanded he move the fence immediately, or they would sue. Apparently, the law stated that they had to put their house so far away from our fence line, and they wanted to push it as far back from the road as they could when they built it, so they wanted that 6 inches very badly. I still remember when my dad got home from the meeting. He hung his hat up and shook his head when he told my mom in his slow way, "Well, looks like we got the kind of folks for neighbors you don't ever want to have for neighbors." They sued and won, and we were forced to move the fence in 2 weeks. I say we because I was the free slave labor as all farm kids are in this kind of thing. All that fencing material and time were a big cost for my family, but we got the work done that late fall. Here's where the fun comes in. So the new neighbors broke ground and built all through the end of winter and into the spring. The very next weekend after they had moved into their house, my dad roused me out of bed and we took the big truck into town to the lumber yard. I was extremely puzzled as we loaded up a bunch of fencing material and building supplies. We didn't have any big projects going that I knew about, and I kept asking him what it was for, but he just told me to wait and see with a devilish smile on his face. We built a pen and a small enclosure very close to our back property line, directly behind the neighbor's new shiny house. The next day, one of our farm friends delivered a half-dozen pigs to their new home. My dad insisted on feeding those hogs table scraps and all the things that would go into the composter, as well as some good balanced hog feed to keep them healthy. Now, you may not know this, But the smell of pig excrement is directly related to what they eat and their pen conditions. Table scraps make them smell bad. I mean bad. I had to drive the four-wheeler back there every day to take care of them, and within a month, halfway to the pen and my eyes would start watering, it smelled so bad. When we mucked out the pen with the bobcat, we also made the pile right next to the pen. I can't even imagine how bad the smell was living in that house. The neighbors, of course, freaked out and again, without ever even trying to talk to us, went the legal route. They lost the case asking to have the pen removed as the area was zoned agricultural, and my dad had done his homework to make sure he was not breaking any laws or regulations. The pigs were far enough from us and other neighbors that it didn't bother anyone but the people he wanted it to bother. Come fall, when winter moved in, we sold the pigs to slaughter, and Dad stacked up a bunch of building supplies next to the pen and let the neighbors know that we would be expanding the profitable operation in the spring. He smiled the whole time, speaking in a slow, steady way as they screamed at him. The new neighbors sold their new house in January when the ground was frozen and the new owners would not smell the pen. Though, as soon as the old neighbors were gone, we tore down the enclosure, spread the nasty stuff on the hayfield, and the new neighbors never had any bad smell come spring. They also were great neighbors and are still lifelong friends. Never mess with a rancher. Well, that is one crappy way to get rid of a nasty neighbor. Get it? 'Cause of pig crap? Let's get this video to 300 likes for the sake of pig crap. On to the next story. I've worked in fast food longer than I cared for. It was never glamorous, but the regulars were always nice, and I got along with my coworkers. The GM, general manager, on the other hand, was the worst. She constantly complained about wasting food product, had a huge clip on her shoulder because of a divorce, and would show off inappropriate pictures to employees who were with her in the office. She was never mean or spiteful, she just didn't work like a manager is supposed to. Around April, I got sick with a cold, and I had all the symptoms: runny and stuffy nose, sore throat, nausea, and a bad cough. You name it, I had it. I tried calling out, but my general manager told me that I couldn't because the restaurant was understaffed. She didn't even give me time to explain that I was sick before saying, "You either come in or look for another job." She then hung up. She's done this before to other employees. They would take some medicine and come in anyway, but I wasn't having it. I knew what I had to do, and thus I made my plan. The revenge. I didn't take any medicine to help with my cold. I made sure that if someone saw me, they'd immediately know I was sick. I came into work looking pale, ragged, and exhausted. I clocked in and went to work. I washed my hands so much that day because I didn't want the customers to get sick, but I had to prove a point. Every employee could see that I needed to go home, but general managers said they'd be in even more trouble if I wasn't there. I tried to keep my head held high, but it's not easy when it feels so heavy. I constantly sneezed, coughed, blew my nose. It was pretty gross. Regulars complained that I needed to be home getting better, but general manager ignored them. She actually thought it was better to have me there working, possibly making everyone else sick, than to be home getting better. What she didn't plan was for the district manager to make a surprise visit. When he saw me, he immediately pulled me to the side and asked why I was there. I explained the situation to him and told him that general manager told me. He was not happy. Before shit went down, he told me to clock out and go home and wished me a speedy recovery. I wasn't there when he talked to general manager, but other employees told me that he tore her a new one, stating how it was dangerous to have me around food in my condition, and to threaten my job if I didn't show up was unethical and unprofessional, saying that if I didn't have a doctor's note after calling would be a better reason to say I'd be fired than what she did. The outcome: the next 2 weeks, everyone was calling out sick. I had made all the other employees sick with my cold. The district manager called and told the general manager that she had no one to blame but herself, since she made me come into work sick. Not only that, but she had to cook the food and help serve it. Some of the regulars even jabbed at her, saying it was her fault she was in this predicament. Not too long after, she got sick herself and had to use vacation time to recover. The best 2 work weeks of my life. No boss to watch me over my shoulder, everyone was back, and no one else was sick, except General Manager. I love the fact that everyone at OP's job caught her sickness 2 weeks before the General Manager did. Serves her right. Well, that's all I got for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video a lot. And thanks to everyone for your comments and thumbs up, as they help out my channel big time. And if you're new to my channel, consider subscribing to help me buy tacos. See you tomorrow.